The war room was silent, not the peaceful kind of silence that comes before sleep. This was the heavy silence of defeat, the kind that pressed down on shoulders and made breathing difficult. Queen stood at the center of the massive chamber, her four arms folded behind her back. Her silver skin caught the dim light from the holographic maps floating around her. Those maps showed nothing but bad news. Red markers covered 7 star systems, 7 worlds lost, 7 billion of her people now under enemy control. The Dominion had been unstoppable. Around her stood the greatest military minds of the Empire. Admiral, whose fleet had once numbered 10,000 ships, now he commanded less than 2,000. General, the ground warfare expert who had not won a single battle in 8 months. High Commander, who had lost her own to the enemy just 3 weeks ago. They all looked broken. Their eyes held no hope. Their bodies showed exhaustion that no amount of rest could fix. "Give me your reports," Queen said. Her voice was calm, but inside she felt like screaming. Admiral stepped forward. He was tall even by standards, almost 3 meters, but today he seemed smaller somehow. "Your Majesty, they have taken the system. Our defensive line has collapsed. We have perhaps 6 weeks before they reach the inner colonies." 6 weeks felt the number like a punch to her stomach. 6 weeks until the enemy reached the heart of her empire. 6 weeks until everything her ancestors had built turned to ash. "And our reinforcements?" she asked. "There are none," General spoke now. His voice was rough, tired. "We have sent every ship, every soldier. The simply have more. Their numbers are endless. For every ship we destroy, they send 5 more. High Commander added, "They do not fight like us. They do not care about losses. They throw their forces at us like waves against a rock. Eventually, the rock breaks." Closed her eyes. She had known this moment would come. She had prepared herself for it, but preparation did not make it easier. "So you are telling me we have lost," she said. No one answered. No one needed to. Above them in the observation gallery, a young human woman watched everything. Her name was, and she had worked as a translator for the Empire for 3 years. It was not an important job. Humans were not important in this galaxy. They were a young species, barely 1,000 years into space travel. They had no great fleets, no powerful weapons, no ancient wisdom. Most species saw humans as clever pets, useful for small tasks, good at languages and fixing broken machines, but nothing more. Had learned to accept this. She did her job, translated documents and conversations, and tried not to think about how little respect her people received. But tonight, something burned inside her, something she could not ignore. She watched Queen, this powerful being who ruled over hundreds of worlds, stand helpless before her generals. She watched the greatest military leaders in the sector admit they had no answers. And thought about Earth, about human history, about all the times her people had faced impossible situations and found a way. Down in the war room, Admiral was speaking again. "Your Majesty, we must consider other options." "You mean surrender," said. The word tasted like poison. "They have offered terms. They will allow the people to live. As subjects, yes, but alive. If we continue fighting, they will show no mercy. They have promised total destruction." Felt rage building inside her. Surrender. Give up everything her empire had achieved. Bow to thee and their endless hunger for conquest. Let her people become slaves. "I will not," she said. "Your Majesty." I said no. Her voice rose now, filling the chamber. "My grandmother did not build this empire so I could hand it to monsters. My mother did not die defending our borders so I could kneel before murderers. I will not surrender. I will die first." The generals exchanged looks. They had expected this. Their queen was proud, perhaps too proud. She would rather burn than bend. "Then we need a miracle," General said quietly. Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Miracles, yes. Perhaps the universe will send us one. Perhaps some ancient power will wake from sleep and save us. Perhaps the stars themselves will fight for us." She turned away from them, walking to the great window that showed the vastness of space. Somewhere out there they were coming. Millions of ships, billions of soldiers, all hungry for her empire. "We will fight until we cannot fight anymore," she said. "That is all we can do." Up in the gallery, felt her heart beating fast. She thought about what she had just heard. She thought about thee and how they fought. She thought about Earth history and all the wars humans had survived. And suddenly, an idea came to her. A crazy idea. An impossible idea. The kind of idea that could either save everyone or get her killed for speaking out of turn. She looked at Queen standing by the window, shoulders bent under the weight of coming defeat. She looked at the generals who had given up hope. Was nobody, a translator, a human, a member of a species that most aliens considered barely worth noticing. But she had something none of them had. She had thousands of years of human history in her head. Stories of how small groups defeated great armies. Stories of how the weak overcame the strong. Stories of how her ancestors refused to accept defeat no matter how impossible the situation seemed. Her hands were shaking. Her mouth was dry. Every part of her brain screamed at her to stay quiet, stay invisible, stay safe. But thought about what would happen if she did nothing. They would fall. Then they would come for other species. Eventually they would come for Earth, for her home, for her family. She took a deep breath. And then she did something no human had ever done in the history of the Empire. She spoke without permission. "Your Majesty," called out, her voice echoing through the massive chamber. Every alien head turned to look at her. Every eye found the small human woman standing in the gallery above them. "I have an idea." The silence that followed was the most terrifying thing had ever experienced. But she did not look away. She could not afford to look away. Queen stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, the Queen raised one of her 4 hands and gestured for to speak. "Come down here," human said. "Tell me your idea." And with legs that felt like water and a heart that beat like thunder, began to walk toward the stairs that would take her to the war room floor, toward the most powerful beings in the sector, toward either her greatest moment or her last. Footsteps echoed in the war room as she walked down the long staircase. Each step felt like it took a year. She could feel every eye on her. The generals, the admirals, the Queen herself, all watching this small human woman who had dared to speak without permission. She was terrified. Her legs wanted to stop moving. Her mind screamed at her to apologize, to run back to the gallery, to disappear. But she forced herself to keep walking, one step after another, until she stood on the floor of the war room, surrounded by beings twice her size. Admiral looked at her like she was an insect that had crawled onto his food. "Who is this creature?" "She is a translator," one of the lesser officers said. "A human. She works in the communications department." "A translator," General made a sound that might have been a laugh. "A human translator wants to teach us about war. This is what we have come to." Queen raised a hand, and the general went silent. The Queen walked toward, her silver form moving with grace that seemed impossible for someone carrying such heavy burdens. She stopped just 2 meters away and looked down at the human. "You said you have an idea," said, "Speak." Swallowed hard. Her throat felt like sand, but she had come this far, she could not stop now. "Your Majesty, I have listened to your generals. They say they have more ships, more soldiers, more resources. They say you cannot win a direct fight." "We know this," Admiral said impatiently. "What is your point, human?" Ignored him. She kept her eyes on the Queen. "But what if you do not fight them directly? What if you fight them in a different way?" A murmur went through the room. High Commander stepped forward. "What different way? War is war. You meet the enemy, you fight. The stronger side wins." "That is how most species think about war," said. "But humans have learned something different. We have learned that the strongest army does not always win." Now even Queen looked doubtful. "Explain." took a deep breath. This was the moment. Everything depended on the next few minutes. On Mai, there is a long history of small groups defeating large empires. We call it guerrilla warfare. It means you do not meet the enemy in open battle. You hide. You strike from shadows. You attack where they do not expect. You disappear before they can respond. You make them bleed slowly, bit by bit, until they are too weak to continue. The room was quiet. The generals looked at each other with confusion on their faces. General was the first to speak. This is cowardice. This is the way of animals, not warriors. It is the way of survivors, said. Her voice was stronger now. On Earth, we have countless stories of this. Small nations defeating great empires, poor farmers beating trained soldiers, people with nothing but rocks and determination bringing down armies with the best weapons in the world. Admiral shook his head. Human stories, human legends. This is a real war, girl, that will not be stopped by your fairy tales. They are not fairy tales, said. She felt anger rising in her chest. They are history, real history. My people learned these lessons with blood and sacrifice over thousands of years. Queen had been silent, listening. Now she spoke. Tell me more about this, guerrilla warfare. How does it work? Felt a small spark of hope. The Queen was actually listening. The fight in a predictable way, she said. They send massive fleets. They crush everything in their path. They move forward in a straight line, taking system after system. Yes. The generals nodded reluctantly. This was exactly how they had been fighting. But what happens if their supply lines are cut? What happens if their fuel stations are destroyed? What happens if their communication networks go dark? Admiral frowned. Their ships would be stranded. Their fleets would lose coordination. But to do this, we would need to attack behind their lines. That is impossible. Their territory is too well guarded. Not with large fleets, said, but with small ships, fast ships, ships that can slip past their defenses, strike a target, and disappear before anyone knows what happened. She walked to one of the holographic maps and pointed at the red markers showing territory. You have been fighting them like they fight, fleet against fleet, army against army, strength against strength. Of course you are losing. They are stronger, but they are not smarter. They are not more flexible. They expect you to keep fighting the same way. High Commander was studying the map now, her expression thoughtful. You are suggesting we abandon conventional warfare entirely. Not entirely, said. Your main fleet should continue to defend. Keep the focus on the front lines. Make them think you are still trying to hold them back. But while they are watching your fleets, you send small strike teams deep into their territory. Hit their supply points. Destroy their fuel reserves. Kill their communication relays. And who would lead these strike teams? General asked. His voice was mocking. Our best commanders are needed at the front. Lifted her chin. I will lead them. The room exploded with noise. Laughter, disbelief, outrage. A human, Admiral actually laughed out loud. A translator wants to lead military operations. Your Majesty, this is absurd. This creature knows nothing about war. I know about survival, said loudly, cutting through the noise. My species has been surviving against impossible odds since before your empire existed. We have fought each other, yes. We have made terrible wars, but we have also learned from every single one. Every strategy, every tactic, every trick that works. It is all here. She tapped her head. Thousands of years of human warfare knowledge. Queen raised her hand again and silence returned. She was looking with something new in her eyes. Something that might have been interest. You truly believe this can work? The Queen asked. I believe it is your only chance, said. If you keep fighting the way you have been fighting, you will lose. That is certain. But if you try something new, something unexpected, something that have never seen before, maybe you can win. Maybe. Maybe is not good enough, Admiral said. Maybe is better than nothing, Queen replied quietly. She was still looking at human. What is your name? Your Majesty. The Queen seemed to taste the name. You would risk your life for this, for an empire that is not your own, for a people who have treated your kind as lesser beings. Thought about the question. It was a fair one. Why should she care what happened to the? They had never done anything special for humanity. But she knew the answer. If the fall the will not stop, she said. They will keep conquering, system after system, species after species. Eventually they will come for Earth, for my family, for everyone I love, so yes, I will fight, not just for your empire but for my home. Queen was silent for a long moment. The generals watched, waiting for her decision. The fate of the entire empire hung on what she said next. Finally, the Queen nodded. Very well, the human, I will give you what you need: ships, resources, volunteers. You have 6 weeks to prove that your ideas can work. If you succeed, you will have more. If you fail. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Bowed her head. I will not fail, your majesty. We shall see, the Queen said. We shall see. As turned to leave, she caught the angry looks from the generals. They did not believe in her. They thought she was a fool, or worse, a distraction from their real problems. But did not care what they thought. She had been given a chance. Now she just had to prove that humans were worth more than anyone in this galaxy had ever imagined. She had 6 weeks to save an empire. She had better get started. Stood in the empty hangar, looking at the 3 small ships the Empire had given her. They were old, scratched and dented from years of service, the kind of ships that nobody wanted anymore. This was what the generals thought her plan was worth: garbage. But smiled. The ships were exactly what she needed: small, fast, and forgettable. Nobody would look twice at them. Nobody would expect them to be dangerous. The hangar door opened behind her, and she turned to see a familiar face. Her heart jumped. She said. Her brother walked toward her with that easy confidence he had always had. He was taller than her, stronger, with the kind of build that came from years of military training. He had served in Earth's Defense Forces for 8 years before coming to work in space as a security contractor. Little sister, he said, pulling her into a hug. I heard you did something crazy. I did something necessary, she replied. Stepped back and looked at her. His eyes were serious now. You really think this plan can work, fighting with 3 broken ships and no real support? I think it has to work, because if it does not, everyone dies. He nodded slowly. Then I am coming with you. No, you have a life here, a good job, you do not need to. Stop, he held up his hand. You are my sister. Where you go, I go. That is how it has always been. That is how it will always be. Felt tears forming in her eyes, but she blinked them away. There was no time for emotion. Not now. Thank you, she whispered. Do not thank me yet. Thank me when we survive this. He looked around the hangar. So, where are the rest of our soldiers? I sent out a call to every human in space. Asked for volunteers, people who have military experience, people who are not afraid to die. And how many answered? Before could respond, the hangar door opened again, and then again, and again. Humans began walking in, men and women of all ages. Some wore old military uniforms from Earth, others wore civilian clothes. They came alone and in small groups, carrying bags and weapons and determined expressions. Counted them as they entered: 10, 20, 30, 40. By the time the last one arrived, there were 63 human volunteers standing in the hangar. 63 people who had heard her call and decided to risk everything. A woman with short gray hair stepped forward. She looked to be in her 50s, but her body was strong and her eyes were sharp. I am, she said, former colonel in Earth Space Marines, 20 years of service. I brought 12 of my old soldiers with me. A young man raised his hand. He could not have been older than 25. I am engineer. I can fix anything that flies, drives, or shoots. One by one they introduced themselves. Soldiers, pilots, engineers, medics, hackers. Each one had skills that needed. Each one had answered her call. "Why did you come?" asked them all. "This mission will probably kill us, you know that." An older man with scars on his face spoke up. His name was, "Because I am tired of being treated like nothing. For years I have watched aliens look at humans like we are insects, like we do not matter. Maybe dying in this fight will not change anything, but maybe it will. Maybe, for once, humans will be remembered as something more than clever pets." Others nodded. They felt the same way. Years of being ignored, being underestimated, being pushed aside. This was their chance to prove everyone wrong. Stepped up beside. "My sister has a plan, a real plan. Not some desperate last stand, but an actual strategy that can hurt the where they are weakest. If you follow her, if you trust her, we might just pull off the impossible." Crossed her arms. "Let us hear this plan then." Walked to a portable holographic display and activated it. A map of territory appeared in the air. "They have one weakness," she said. "They are predictable. Their fleet movements follow strict patterns. Their supply lines are long and poorly defended because they have never needed to defend them. No one has ever attacked behind their lines." She pointed to a series of stations marked on the map. "These are their main fuel depots. Without fuel, their ships cannot move. These stations," she pointed to another set of markers, "control their communication network. Destroy them and their fleets cannot coordinate." Was studying the map closely. "The stations are spread across their territory. We would need to hit multiple targets at the same time to cause real damage." "Exactly," said. "That is why we are dividing into 3 teams. Each team takes one ship. We enter space using different routes, hit our targets simultaneously, and then disappear before they can respond." "How do we disappear?" asked. "They will send everything they have after us once we attack." "We use the debris fields." Zoomed in on a region of space filled with broken asteroids and destroyed ships. Old battlefields from wars fought centuries ago. They avoid these areas because they are too dangerous to navigate. But humans, she smiled, humans are very good at doing dangerous things. Laughed. "You want us to hide in ship graveyards. I want us to use every advantage we have. They are bigger, stronger, and have more resources. But they are also slow, predictable, and arrogant. They have never fought an enemy that refuses to play by their rules. We will be that enemy." Spoke up. "I will lead the second team. You take the third." The older woman nodded, agreed. Felt something warm in her chest. Hope, real hope for the first time in weeks. "We have 3 days to prepare," she said. "Learn your ships, study your targets, get to know your teammates. In 3 days we launch. In 3 days we show the entire galaxy what humans are capable of." The volunteers spread out to begin their work. Immediately went to inspect the ships, muttering about parts that needed replacing. Gathered her soldiers to discuss tactics. Others checked weapons, studied maps, and prepared supplies. Stayed behind with. "This is really happening," he said quietly. "Yes, it is." "Are you scared?" Thought about lying, but this was her brother, she could not lie to him. "Terrified," she admitted. "But I have been scared before. In school, when they said I was not smart enough. When I applied for the translator job and everyone told me humans never get hired. When I stood in that war room and spoke without permission. Fear has never stopped me before." Put his hand on her shoulder. "That is what makes you different from everyone else. Most people let fear control them. You use it as fuel." She looked up at him. "Promise me something." "Anything." "If something happens to me, do not stop. Finish the mission, no matter what." His jaw tightened. "Nothing is going to happen to you." "Promise me." A long silence, then finally he nodded. "I promise." Turned back to watch her volunteers working. 63 humans preparing to challenge an empire that had conquered hundreds of worlds. 63 people who believed in her plan, her leadership, her vision. She would not let them down. 3 days passed faster than anyone expected. Ships were repaired, weapons were loaded, and plans were memorized. When the moment came to launch, all 3 teams were ready. Stood at the entrance of her ship, looking at the stars beyond the hangar force field. "For Earth," she whispered. Behind her, and echoed the words from their own ships. "For Earth." And then, one by one, the 3 small ships flew out into the darkness, heading toward enemy territory, heading toward impossible odds, heading toward either glory or death. The human gambit had begun. The first fuel depot exploded in a ball of white fire that lit up the darkness of space. Watched from her ship as billions of liters of starship fuel turned into pure destruction. "Target destroyed," she said into her communicator. "Team 1, mission complete." Across the vast emptiness of territory, 2 other voices answered. "Team 2, depot destroyed," reported, "moving to secondary target." Team 3, same, added, "No pursuit yet, these are sleeping." Allowed herself a small smile. Phase 1 had worked perfectly. 3 fuel depots gone in a single coordinated strike. They had not expected anyone to attack so deep in their territory. They had not expected anything at all. But knew the surprise would not last long. "All teams move to debris fields. Go dark. Wait for my signal." The 3 ships scattered in different directions, heading for the ancient battlefields that dotted space. Within minutes, they had disappeared into fields of floating metal and rock, hiding among the wreckage of wars fought long ago. Ship drifted slowly between broken hull pieces the size of buildings. Her pilot, a young woman named Sara, navigated with incredible skill, avoiding obstacles that would have torn them apart. "How long do we wait?" Sora asked. "Until they respond. I want to see what they do." They did not have to wait long. Within 2 hours, ships began appearing on their sensors. Hundreds of them. They spread out in search patterns, looking for the attackers who had hit their fuel supplies. Watch the patterns carefully, studying how they moved. They were systematic, thorough, but also predictable. "They search in grids," she said to her team, "always moving in straight lines. They clear one area completely before moving to the next." Who was on her ship leaned over to look at the display. "So we just stay ahead of their search pattern." "Exactly. As long as we know how they move, we can always be somewhere they are not." For 3 days, the human teams played this deadly game of hide and seek. During the day cycles, they hid in debris fields while ships hunted for them. During the night cycles, when patrols were lighter, they struck again. A communication relay station fell to steam. 2 more fuel depots were destroyed by. Hit a weapons storage facility that took out enough ammunition to supply 1,000 ships. Each strike was quick and brutal. The humans would appear from nowhere, unleash everything they had, and then vanish before they could respond. It was exactly the kind of warfare had described to Queen, death by 1,000 cuts. They began to panic. Intercepted their communications, listening to their commanders argue about what was happening. They could not understand how such small forces were causing such massive damage. They could not predict where the next attack would come from. For the first time in the war, they were afraid. "They are calling us ghosts," reported from his station. He had tapped into the communication network. "They say we appear from nothing and disappear into nothing. Some of them think we are supernatural." Good said, "Fear is a weapon too." But success brought new dangers. They were adapting. They sent more ships to guard their remaining targets. They began patrolling the debris fields more heavily. The window of opportunity was closing. On the 10th day, called a meeting via secure communication. "We have hurt them," she said, "but not enough. Their main fleet is still moving toward the inner colonies. We need to do something bigger, something that will stop them completely." His voice came through the speaker. "What do you have in mind?" pulled up a new display. It showed a massive ship at the center of the fleet. This is their command vessel, the Dominion's heart. It controls all fleet communications and coordination. If we destroy it, their entire military structure falls apart. Spoke up immediately. That ship has more defenses than some planets. We cannot get close to it with our little ships. Not in a normal attack, no, agreed. But what if we do not attack from outside? What if we get inside? She explained her plan. It was insane. It was suicidal. It required one of their ships to be captured on purpose with a bomb hidden inside that would bring the captured ship into their command vessel for inspection, and then the bomb would detonate. Silence followed her explanation. Finally spoke, "I will do it." No, said immediately, no. It makes sense. My ship is the most damaged. My team is the smallest, and I am the best pilot. I can make sure I get captured in the right place, close enough to the command vessel to be brought aboard. This is a suicide mission. Whoever does this will not survive. I know. Felt her heart breaking. I cannot ask you to do this. You are not asking, I am volunteering. His voice was calm, steady, completely certain. Sister, listen to me. This plan will work. Without their command ship that cannot coordinate their fleet, they will fall apart. They will have a chance to push them back. This is what we came here to do. There has to be another way. There is not, and we both know it. Cut in gently. He is right. I do not like it any more than you do, but this is war. Sometimes victory requires sacrifice. Closed her eyes. She wanted to scream. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to find some other option, any other option. But there was no other option. She knew it, everyone knew it. Promise me you will make it count, she whispered. I promise, said, and promise me you will survive this. Go home. Tell our parents what happened. Make sure the galaxy remembers what we did here. She could not speak. Her throat was too tight. I love you, little sister. I always have. I always will. The communication ended. The next morning's ship flew directly into a patrol. He made it look like an accident, like he was trying to escape and failed. They captured him easily, just as planned. Watched from a distance as the patrol ships escorted toward the Dominion's heart. She tracked his signal as he was brought inside the massive command vessel. Then 15 minutes later, the signal stopped, and the Dominion's heart exploded. The explosion was so massive it destroyed everything within 100 kilometers. Secondary explosions rippled through the fleet as ships lost control without their command network. Vessels crashed into each other. Others drifted aimlessly, their crews unable to receive orders. In a single moment, the entire war machine came apart. Did not feel victory. She felt empty. Her brother was gone. The person who had protected her since childhood, who had believed in her when no one else did, who had followed her into this impossible mission. Gone. But she could not stop, not yet. There was still work to do. All teams, she said, her voice somehow steady. The command ship is destroyed. The fleet is in chaos. This is our moment. Hit everything you can. Show them no mercy. And for the next 6 hours, the human strike teams unleashed everything they had left. Fuel depots, communication relays, weapons caches, supply ships. They attacked without rest, without hesitation, without fear. By the time the last bomb was dropped, the war effort had been crippled. Sat alone in her ship, staring at the stars. Somewhere out there in the debris of the Dominion's heart were the remains of her brother. You did it, she whispered. You saved everyone. Tears ran down her face, but through the tears she smiled. He would have wanted her to smile. The Dominion surrendered on a cold morning in the imperial calendar. Stood in the same war room where she had first spoken without permission, watching the holographic displays show the impossible news. Ships were retreating from every system they had conquered. Their leaders had sent formal requests for peace. The war that everyone said could not be won was ending. 3 weeks had passed since sacrifice. 3 weeks of chaos as the military tried to rebuild their command structure and failed. Without the Dominion's heart, their fleets could not coordinate. Without their supply lines, their ships ran out of fuel. Without their communication networks, their commanders could not give orders. The Empire had not just survived, they had won. Queen stood at the center of the room, receiving reports from her generals. The same generals who had laughed its plan. The same admirals who had called her a foolish human girl. Now they spoke with respect in their voices, glancing at her when they thought she was not looking. "They are requesting a meeting to discuss terms," Admiral reported. His tone was different now, humble. "They wish to negotiate the return of the 7 systems they conquered." "They will return all 7 systems," Queen said, "plus compensation for our losses, plus a guarantee that they will never attack our space again." "Your Majesty, that is, those are very aggressive terms." "They attacked my empire. They killed my people. They would have destroyed everything if not for—" She paused and turned to look at. "If not for the courage of one human woman and her volunteers, I think aggressive terms are appropriate." Said nothing. She had not spoken much since returning from the mission. The victory felt hollow without beside her to share it. The meeting continued, but barely listened. Her mind kept going back to that moment when the Dominion's heart exploded. She wondered what had been thinking in his final seconds. She wondered if he had been afraid. She wondered if he had known that his sacrifice would change everything. Of the 63 human volunteers who had joined the mission, 47 had survived. 16 had died in various attacks, their small ships destroyed by defenders or lost in accidents. Each death weighed on his heart. She had led them. She was responsible. But they had succeeded. That was what mattered. That was what would have said. When the meeting ended, Queen approached directly. The other officers stepped aside, giving their queen space. "Walk with me," said. They left the war room together, walking through the great halls of the imperial palace. Guards and servants bowed as they passed, their eyes widening at the sight of a human walking beside the queen as an equal. "I owe you an apology," said. Looked up surprised. "Your Majesty. When you first spoke in my war room, I gave you a chance because I was desperate. I did not truly believe your plan would work. I thought you were a distraction, something to keep my generals busy while I prepared for defeat." The queen paused by a great window showing the night sky. "I was wrong." "You gave me a chance when no one else would," said. "That is more than any human has ever received from the Empire. And that is another thing I must apologize for. My people have treated humans poorly. We saw you as lesser beings, useful for small tasks but nothing more. We never looked closely enough to see what you truly are." Turned to face fully. Her silver face was hard to read, but her voice carried genuine emotion. "Your brother gave his life for my empire. Your volunteers fought and died for a cause that was not their own. You showed courage that would shame many of my greatest warriors." She reached out with one of her 4 hands and placed it gently on his shoulder. "I will not forget this. My empire will not forget this." Felt tears threatening again, but she held them back. "What happens now?" "Now we rebuild. The war is over, but there is much work to do. Systems must be restored. People must return to their homes. They must be watched to ensure they keep their promises." The queen paused. "And humanity must be given the respect it has earned." "What do you mean?" "I have spoken with the other leaders of my empire. We have decided that humans will no longer be treated as a minor species. You will be given full diplomatic status. You will be recognized as an equal partner in galactic affairs. Your people will have access to all the opportunities and resources that other major species enjoy." Stared at her. That is more than we ever dreamed of." "It is less than you deserve," squeezed her shoulder gently. "And there is one more thing. I wish to honor you personally in a ceremony before the entire empire. You will be named Blade of the Empire, the highest military honor any non can receive. "I do not need honors," said quietly. "I did not do this for recognition." "I know, that is exactly why you deserve it." The queen released her shoulder and stepped back. "Your brother will be honored as well. A memorial will be built in his name so that future generations will remember what he did." At the mention of "finally let the tears fall," she did not try to stop them this time. "He would have liked that," she whispered. "He always said humans needed to be remembered for something great." 2 weeks later, the ceremony was held in the grand plaza of the imperial capital. Millions watched in person. Billions more watched through broadcasts across the galaxy. Stood before Queen in her finest clothes. The 46 surviving volunteers stood behind her, each wearing the new medals that had been created specifically for them. The Queen's voice echoed across the plaza. "Today we honor those who saved our empire. When defeat seemed certain, these humans showed us another way. They fought without great fleets. They conquered without vast armies. They proved that courage, intelligence, and determination can overcome any enemy." She turned to, "Of Earth, you came to us as a translator, a worker in an unimportant job, but you saw what our greatest generals could not see. You believed when our bravest warriors had given up hope, and you led your people into the heart of danger to protect those who had never protected them." Queen drew a ceremonial blade from her belt. It was ancient, passed down through generations of rulers. "By the authority granted to me as Queen of the Empire, I name you Blade of the Empire. May your example inspire generations to come." She pressed the flat of the blade against shoulders, first one side, then the other. The crowd erupted in cheers that shook the plaza. Accepted the honor with a bow, but when she stood up, she spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "This honor belongs to everyone who fought beside me, especially my brother who gave everything so that others could live." She looked up at the sky, imagining she could see the stars where he had died. He believed that humans could be more than what the galaxy thought we were. Today, we have proven him right. The cheers grew even louder. That night sat alone on a balcony, looking up at the stars. The celebrations continued in the city below, but she needed quiet. She needed to think. So much had changed. Humanity was no longer a minor species. Earth was no longer a backwater world. Her people would have opportunities they had never imagined. But none of that changed the fact that was gone. She pulled out a small photograph from her pocket. It showed her and her brother as children, standing in front of their family home on Earth. They were both smiling. They had no idea what the future held. "I did what you asked," said to the photograph. "I survived. I made sure the galaxy would remember us." She traced her finger over his face. "I miss you every day, but I will keep going. I will make sure your sacrifice meant something." A sound behind her made her turn. Was standing in the doorway, 2 cups in her hands. "Thought you might want some company," the older woman said. Smiled and gestured to the empty chair beside her. "Please." Sat down and handed her one of the cups. It was warm tea, the kind they used to drink on Earth. "Strange feeling, is it not?" said. "We won, we actually won, and yet." "It does not feel like winning," finished. "No, it does not," sipped her tea. "But maybe that is okay. Maybe winning is not supposed to feel like joy. Maybe it is supposed to feel like relief, like surviving." They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars. "What will you do now?" asked. Thought about it. She could go home to Earth, see her parents, rest, or she could stay here, help rebuild, make sure the peace lasted. "I do not know yet," she admitted. "But whatever I do, I want it to matter. I want to keep making a difference." Nodded. "That sounds like something would say." Smiled. "Yes, it does." Above them, the stars shone cold and distant, but they no longer seemed threatening. They seemed like possibilities, like doorways to futures that humans could now reach. The war was over. The impossible had been achieved. and somewhere among those stars knew her brother was watching. She raised her cup to the sky. "To new beginnings," she said. Raised hers as well. "To new beginnings." And in that moment, looking at the infinite darkness filled with infinite light, knew that humanity's story was just beginning.